welcome, John. How are you? Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you do all the way in India, in Bangalore?
Sure. As you said, my name is John Bertken, and I'm the whole school sports and activities coordinator at Stonehill International School here in Bangalore.
And tell me about that title. What does that title entail? What's your job description? If someone
hmm
were to say, what do you do? Tell us.
Well, if you look at the academic ecosystem, right? You have or the school ecosystem. You have the academic side, and then there's the other side. The other side, which is also part of learning, right? But more of the practical learning, the type of learning where the individuals get out and learn more about their capabilities in areas where they choose to participate.
I really like that. So you spoke, this is your words. When we first spoke online, you said, I have a very good symbiotic real relationship between the school and the community. And that got me really excited that the community that you serve and the interactions that are happening among the students and the community members in the school. So tell me a little bit more about how that started out when you started programming. And you have a couple of amazing programs running, even though it's COVID. And I know things have changed a lot since COVID. So tell us a little bit more about how you developed that relationship with the community you serve.
Sure. Well, while COVID's presented a lot of obstacles to learning, right? It's also presented some opportunities, and some of those opportunities um, exist because we've learned now how to educate, unfortunately and fortunately, how to educate in a virtual environment, right? So that means that the student doesn't always have to be in the classroom. And that provides for other opportunities. It provides for opportunities such as internships or service projects or things where the student can get outside the classroom and not really miss a beat academically. So when COVID first hit, and and we were trying to figure out as a school how we present what we're going to be doing to the parent community and the community in general. Uh, Obviously, after school athletics and activities, I mean, how do you do that, right? So the word was out that we're not going to be able to provide any of this. And I thought, geez, we need to do something, right? Because this part of the, like I said, the educational ecosystem is crucial to the community and the, coming together. The community keeps people together, right? And the spirit of the school. So I met with some student leaders, and we created a website to be a platform for activities.
I
So that
love the
people,
website. You shared that with me. There's so many interesting activities, and I could totally see the student voice coming out. I like the fact that you involve the students. So, what is the favorite? What's your favorite thing that you worked on with the students?
you mean on the website or
Yeah,
just in, yeah.
yeah. From the
Well, yeah,
outside perspective, that's what I saw. So I couldn't tell you what everything you've been working on, but from seeing it from the outside, I noticed the awards and the celebrations and the pictures.
yeah. No, that's well, actually, the most enjoyable part of working on the website was actually the collaborative meetings with the students that you don't see on the website, and it would be actually we probably should put these meetings on the website because the bloopers. You have some movies have bloopers at the end of it, and they're really entertaining. Well, our meetings were very entertaining, and the kids were very productive. And so, to be honest with you, the website that you see is a product of what I enjoyed most, really, and it's great. And the name actually, let's do more. At the time when we couldn't do anything,
Mm-hmm.
was very, not ironic, but it was very hopeful and optimistic. And yeah, there's some great things on there, from spotlight interviews on the TV aspect of it, where they interview the students who wrote books, to the governing council, head of the governing council. So There's a broad spectrum of that. There's challenges on there, fun challenges, lip sync competitions. It's just a good spot for people to come together when the time when we're all separated out.
Well, we're definitely in unprecedented times, right? Like COVID is lasting a very long time, and we had to kind of maneuver working online. Even back here in Toronto, things have changed so much. What are the main changes you see in education where you're teaching?
Yeah, I think we're at a cusp of a new form of education. I think we're all trying to figure it out, and again, using the fact that COVID created something that maybe people didn't really like and appreciate that, but they know how to do it now, right? And so this new form of education, I'm excited about because I can't wait to see it. Because, I it's ironic that I'm in education at all because I hated school.
Tell me more. That's something we don't have in common. I loved school.
I played sports. I went, and that motivated me for much of what I did in the classroom, right? And then I went to college to play football, and I was an English major because I could write. It came easy to me to write, and so that was an easy major, right? And so people thought, "Wow, you're going to be a teacher," and I thought, "Oh, no, I don't want to be a teacher. There's nothing in the educational field that's appealing. I want to make some money. I want to get in the business." So I got out, and I was when I graduated, I worked in the business management consulting industry for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But during those 4 years, I realized that I wasn't really gaining any personal satisfaction.
Okay.
And so I ended up back in education because I love sports and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And coaching is being a teacher,
There you go. Yes.
Right. And so anyway, that got me back into the educational arena. And I've always looked at teaching. I was an English teacher and a history teacher and whatnot. And I always looked at it trying to figure out the most creative way.
Mm-hmm.
Because I pictured myself in the classroom, right?
Yeah.
And I'm that guy in the back going, okay, this is boring. Okay, can we move on, right? So like for example, history classes, I did as many possible simulations as you could.
Yeah.
Right. Let's bring it to life. Let's do something that's different. Right. So I was always trying to find something different. And now we're at a place where it is different.
Yeah.
But again, looking at the positive nature of it, it allows the students to get out of the classroom and experience education. And so that's where the activities and and athletics has always been there, but more on the activity side, right? We have internship programs at our school that we're again, when I say we have them, we're coming off of COVID. So these are things that are in the mix for next year and playing out next year. But it begins at the 8th grade level. A lot of times internships for high school students are during the summertime.
Yeah.
And they're usually juniors, seniors in high school. But the idea of getting an 8th grader focused on entrepreneurship or some other aspect of marketing or whatnot, and doing it in this case virtually, right? So our 8th graders and our freshmen and sophomores will be doing these internships on these virtual platforms with these companies that we're working with. And then the idea would be sophomores and juniors would then work with our partners, which are corporate partners, and go actually be physically at a work site, right? During the school year. So they might be at school 3 days a week, and maybe at a work site 2 days a week or 1 day a week. But again, not really missing a beat academically because teachers know how to keep them in the classroom, or again, virtually they could be on the screen, or the creativity of projects, project-based learning.
And have you set that up for September already, or the new school year? Are you just planning it, or have you run that already?
Yeah, no, we're still in the planning stages because you don't want to rush something like this. You want to do it properly.
Yep.
Right. And so, yeah, it'll be something that we roll out next year.
That sounds wonderful. So I don't, I liked your story, how you went into education. And I went into education because I actually got an opportunity to teach kindergarten when I was in high school. And after I got that job, I continued to teach while I was in high school. And it's sort of like the program you're setting up right now that you're working on, which got me really excited to see that the students had the opportunity to work, get experience while they're in school, because that actually increased my productivity because I had a motivation. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher, and I was not waiting to be a teacher. I was teaching while I was in school. And I thought that would be very nice to see how it comes together one day at your school for the grade eights, grade nines, whichever grade, wherever they're at. Each student is different. I started in grade 10, I believe. And then that was a really good opportunity for me to be engaged. So that was exciting. Is there anything else that you're doing that is project based learning
Well,
compared to?
let me take a step back to what
Yeah.
you were talking about and highlight some of that. So I've been working with high school students,
Okay.
secondary students since 1991. Um, and I love teenagers, but it is such a scary time for teenagers because they are coming into this new world. They're starting to be given more responsibilities, right? And they're
Mhm.
learning how to deal with those responsibilities. But right around the corner is this thing called adulthood,
Yes.
and they don't really know, and what that means for them, or if they're even capable of achieving expectations, right? Because parents have expectations, society has expectations. Before I was here, I was in Korea, and at one point I was a head of boarding for 220 students in Jeju, and the biggest fear I had there, right now, Korea has a high suicide rate,
Does it
and
really?
yeah, amongst teenagers, and my thing was, before that, I never really dealt with suicidal ideation. Now I'm living with it, right? And so you have a lot of conversations with these kids, and that was the number one thing, is that looking at the future, and not knowing, right, what the future holds. So again, when we can start early, like you in 10th grade, looking at a career path, right? It gives you some kind of direction. It gives
Mhm.
you some confidence because you've done it. You see what's good, what's not good, but you can work on it. Um, the clearer the future can look for them, right? The more confident they have in addressing the future and moving forward. Um, yeah, so that's why part of the reason why we're starting with eighth graders, right,
Yeah.
and trying to get these internships up, because we talk career pathways, right, but it's a journey. We're always on a life journey, but when you don't know which path to take, anybody, you're kind of anxious about it, right? So I think that helps clear things up, and like you
I
said,
agree.
look where you are today. And by the way, teaching kindergartners, you are a special person.
I don't teach kindergarten anymore, but that's where I started. I always will have a soft spot for that age because, it gave me that experience to have fun and smile every day and have a great day every single day going into school. But before I forget my train of thought, I thought about how that internship work experience also gives you a student the opportunity to say, I'm good at it. I can do this for the rest of my life, or this is just not the path I want to go down. It's not working for me. So if I wanted to be a football coach, I love watching football. I could not coach football or play football. If I went down that path, I could say, well, this is a good experience for me, learning opportunity, but it's not going to happen because that's just not me. But I think giving that opportunity and providing the pathways is the key so students can figure themselves out. Because some students are at that stage, as you mentioned, where they don't know what the world holds. Some students know exactly what they hold and what's happening. Other students need more time, right? It's
Right.
interesting. So, do you work with high school students mostly or elementary?
I work
That's
with
what
high
you
school
said it's
students.
every single grade you work with. in
Mhm.
your role?
Yeah, no, I work with high school students mostly and for primary, right? Um, with the older primary students, on occasion, we'll sit down and we'll look through these things, um, but mostly, again, as little as the primary students, their life is guided for them, and and then secondary, that's where the things start to open up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people start to say, okay, think for yourself, and sometimes that's not easy, but it's exciting, and so yeah, so I work with mostly secondary students on creating these activities. Um, but yeah, it's that pathway again is just something that again gives confidence because they see what they're capable of achieving. And you're absolutely right, because if they start going down the wrong path, I mean, here in India, it's kind of interesting, and uh, um, many people graduate with an engineering major.
Okay, that's interesting.
Well,
Is that both genders?
parents expect them to be engineers. But the funny, I mean, and maybe I'm overgeneralizing here, but people that I've spoken with, they're either doctors or engineers. So they go to school to do what their parents expect them to do. They graduate with an engineering major, and then they go into the career path which they actually want to do, which may have nothing to do with engineering, right?
Okay.
So again, if you have internships and they start off in these internships and they find that they don't want to be an engineer, at least it gives them um, some ammunition for an argument, to say, wait a minute, I don't really want to be this because of these reasons. So I mean, I'm experienced it, and I know that this is in my pathway. Versus, like I said, the unknown paths and people's expectations are very difficult sometimes.
That's a good way to walk it through because um, culturally, parents hold a big status, right, in South Asian countries. So they do have high expectations on their children. It doesn't mean you'll always have to do the same thing, but it's that balance of respect and what you want to do and what you're good at doing, right? You could have this vision to do something, but if you're not good at that, if that's not your calling, it's not going to work. So
Right.
that's interesting. So I saw this video of your school that you work at, and I was fascinated. I was like, it's held such a soft spot in my heart. I was like, this is so beautiful. The campus was so beautifully set up. The opportunity to work in groups and intermingle outside was there from the outside. I'm always talking from what I see from here all the way in North America. Tell us a little bit more about your campus and the programming your school offers.
Okay. Yeah, the campus is beautiful, right? It's very large, and it has as a athletic director, it has everything you need, and good quality. I think we're one of the few schools here in Bangalore that has an indoor basketball hall, I mean, basketball gymnasium, and that's beautiful. It's huge. It's got the top of the state of the art flooring and everything, and just very nice. Um, as far as the programming goes, yeah, again, going back to with the COVID, it's had us given us an opportunity to reflect, right, on some of the things that we do. And, we do a lot of community service, and, as many schools will do, a lot of times it's fundraising, right?
Mhm.
Fundraising for events and for people, and that's great. But because of COVID, we've the number of primary teachers, and it's going to be something that I think will expand to the whole school, have come up with a program called Community Connections.
Tell us
And
a bit more.
the key is, when you're fundraising for a group, that's great, and you're somewhat connected, and you're doing a good thing for them, right? Um, but you don't really know too much about the people that you're really helping. And
Yes.
so this organization within the school is really focused on learning their stories, right? Getting out and being with them and understanding their stories. And it's both synchronous and asynchronous because of, again, COVID, you're never quite sure. So it's got two platforms that would work in this regard. And again, it's student directed. So the students decide upon the projects that they want to work on
Yes.
and the groups that they want to work with. And then we help set that up. And but the focus of the work is to have the students interact with the people, right? And get to know them and share stories. Stories can go both ways,
So it's
right?
kind of like inquiry based and
Yeah.
taking that into the project based learning. That's very
Right.
interesting.
So that they can learn about other people, other cultures, other lives, and even within the same culture, we're all different. We all have different stories to tell. And
Absolutely.
and so when you know I'm you know I'm not a young teacher anymore. I've been around a while, but I love hearing stories, and I learn from other people's stories. Um, and so that's the same idea. You can never, with the primary students, you're never too young. And they love stories too. They love to hear stories. But anyway, it's a program that, again, that is to reach out to the community, get out in the community, and if it can't get out, then we would set up an asynchronous um, situation via the internet and the virtual learning type of environment. So anyway, and that's something that is starting with a primary group, and that will probably the hope is that it'll spread throughout the entire school.
I would be very interested to know how the scaffolding works, right? Like how much um, the teacher controls the situation compared to how much the students are leading, depending on the age group. But that sounds like a great opportunity for students to get excited about what they're learning about.
Right.
Like if
But
you are learning about fundraising and understanding someone else's story, what um, what a good opportunity to understand differences, and that's wonderful. Is there anything else that's exciting that you wanted to share that you haven't shared already? I loved writing this article because it was such a reflective opportunity for me to think about my philosophy, what you're doing, and what your school's doing, and see how it aligns. And I took a little bit of time thinking about it because I was like, I don't know where it's going to go because it was very much let's work with the article and see where you wanted to take it, but it actually went where I wanted to go. So I really wanted to hear your perspective on how much your voice came out because I really did enjoy reading the website and seeing what you do. But when I wrote the article at first, I was like, I want to see where I want to take this. So what are your thoughts? How did the article come together? Did you feel like you got everything you wanted out of the article? Because I really wanted to spotlight what you're doing because I think your programming is really important and invaluable to a school where the school and the community has to connect. What are your thoughts, John?
yeah, no, I appreciated the article. I think it was well done, and of course, your voice is going to come out as as the educator and writer, and the person who's got the focus of what the scope of the article is going to be about. Um, it's kind of difficult to provide content for your article because at this point I can't use examples, right? We're
Yes,
just coming out of COVID,
COVID. Yes.
right? So all I can talk about really is the planning stages of this, right? And I don't know, maybe next year there's a follow up, right, where we can have the examples and we can show the pictures of the kids. We can interview the students. In fact, that would be the best, really, is to get their interviews and perspectives as to how it's working, right? Because again,
Mhm.
we think it's great, but the end result is if they're not into it, then it's not great. You know,
They have
that's
to
one thing
want to do
also.
it. But as like an elective, right? It's
Right,
not forced upon them. It's more like here's an opportunity to try something new. What do you pick? If you
right.
pick it, are you going to do really well? What's your vision? So that sounds really wonderful. Are you
Yeah,
enjoying planning
absolutely.
it?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's great because again, I am using the students, to whenever we set up activities. Um, Again, what I've learned over the years is, my ideas, especially, as the younger generations come through and they're starting to talk about, Instagram and this and that, and I'm like, Insta what? So you start to you're more slow, you're slower on the uptake when it comes to the newer generations and what they're into. um, so I've learned that I might have a great idea, but my great idea might be based upon 15, 20 years ago of something that would be really great. And then you put it out there and the kids are like, yeah, okay, that's not exactly what we want to do. Or so I've allowed them to take the lead in these things, by the ideas. Now, you were talking about the scaffolding approach, um, student directed, and sometimes people say, well, let's just let the students do it all, right? It doesn't really work that way. The students are creative. Again, the teenage brain is developing still. But the part of the brain, the frontal lobe part of the brain, brings things together and has the actual thought process, where forward thinking and looking at um, cause and effect and whatnot isn't really there. It's impulse, so they don't really. Once you get them started, then they're good. But a lot of times they don't know exactly how to get started, right? So the scaffolding, I think, is something like, well, for example, as a coach, and it happened here, it was pretty funny. I first day of practice, I don't just roll the basketball out and say, okay, go warm up, right?
Yes.
And thinking they know what to do to warm up, right? So I have, a structured warm up routine, and it's fun, whatever, but it's a structured warm up routine. So they know the structure within that framework, right? Well, there was a day where we started practice, and something happened and drew me away, because I'm the athletic director and I had to go see what the other team issue was.
Yes.
And it was actually a practice. We didn't start practice yet. It was before practice started,
Okay.
right? So I go away and I go deal with it, and I'm thinking, I got to get back to practice, because these kids are probably just standing around waiting for me, right? Waiting for me. Well, that's my ego, but no, they were into practice. They were practicing. They had it going, and they're coaching each other up, and they knew everything, what to do. And again, I've had that experience in the past as a coach too. So providing the structure and at the beginning gives them the opportunity to use their own creativity, as it goes on. So yeah, those are the exciting things. And the planning, it's fun because it's planning, and when you plan, everything works.
Yes. I think the planning stage is the most important. In any research article you read in education, it'll say that, right? And I totally, as a classroom teacher, because I do teach grade 2 online currently, the planning stage goes in first, and then I change all the plans according to what my students want to do. So I kind of explain it to them like, if I ask every single person to ride a scooter to school, how successful would my task be for you to come to school on time, compared to if I say, if you want to walk, take a bike, ride a scooter, get a car ride, depending on where you're living, and you get to school on time. And if your goal is to get to school on time, you've gotten the opportunity to do what you want, you're more successful at it. So kind of explain to them, when they pick a project, have fun with it. If you're not having fun, don't pick that option, because it's going to be kind of boring. So I structure it in a way that they have a lot of structure, but then the freedom for creativity is always there. I think that's the best part in when I'm teaching online, to be able to see what they come up with. And grade 2s are fascinating. They do the most amazing things online right now. I feel like they're going on grade 10, but they're grade 2s. Like, they can type, they can do videos, they can present. They're super awesome.
Right, right. It's
And
funny. I think that human nature, we like structure.
we
You
do.
know,
Mhm.
we want to know the boundaries. And
Yes.
once we, one of the in working in the past at one of the schools of the Sacred Heart International Network of Schools of the Sacred Heart, they have 5 goals, and the one goal that I loved and really adhered to was one called personal growth in an atmosphere of wise freedom.
I like
Now,
that one. Mhm. Tell us a little bit more about it.
well, it's not total freedom, right? It's wise freedom. Wise freedom is where we come in. We set the boundaries, and once they know, and they're primary, they could be grade 2 or they could be grade 10, and they're going to come and they're going to push the boundaries, right? They're going to test the boundaries. That's what kids do, and they're supposed to do that, right? That's part of the learning process. But once they understand that those are the boundaries, then within those boundaries, we don't need to provide any more structure.
Yes.
They figure out what it is they need to do, staying within those boundaries. So they're going to be successful sometimes. They're not going to be successful sometimes. right? And
And
this
that's
is
where
the
the guidance comes in, where you can
right,
tell. Yeah.
right. So you have your personal growth opportunities in that atmosphere of wise freedom. And I mean, and when you give them that, there's incredible, like you were saying, I mean, you have grade twos who you were just listing out some of the skills that they have, and you're thinking, wow, that's amazing, right? You know,
It is.
and I would never have thought they could have been that advanced. But wait a minute, I didn't give them the opportunity to be, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Sometimes we create boundaries, but then we want to guide them each step of the way, and that limits them. Like you said, their creativity. There's no creativity, right? Because somebody's limiting them every step of the way.
I'm
So
all about creativity in my teaching. Like I don't I wouldn't say I don't like structure. I am very structured, but I keep it open ended so they have the opportunity to take it where they want to go. And every task is like that, and I find it's very I don't know, engaging as a student and as a teacher, because I never have one thing in mind, because it goes where the students want to go with it, and then the day is more exciting and it's fun
right.
to teach. So
Well, and the other thing I think you were asking earlier about education, and I think that we're going to come to a place where we aren't going to be looking for teachers that have great content knowledge anymore, because hey Google, hey Siri, what's the answer to this, right?
that's the
And so
reality.
no, Siri's going to turn on. um, Sorry. um, but information is at our fingertips. It's how
Yes.
do we get to that information, and so we're going to look for people that are more facilitators, and like you're talking about, providing that structure, but then they decide, right? So you need to facilitate the opportunity for them to to understand what the options are, and then to direct that, and then you're there with them to help guide them and facilitate with them.
Yeah.
But
And
they but
also gives them individual opportunities, individual programming, because
right,
you haven't said the same thing to each student. Every
right,
child gets to get the feedback that they require to go to the next step. I
right.
don't know. New opportunities. It's interesting. I think high school is going to change so much with
Hmm.
these younger ones coming up that are so, I guess, technology savvy. That's what I would call it. They know what to do. They don't need to ask you the information. They can look it up, and they know how to look it up, right? So
Right.
it's interesting. Like, I can't imagine if they go into school, and they haven't been into school for a while. So when they go into real school, they call it, "What's real school like?" They ask me. I say it'll be fine, it'll be good. But I can't imagine when someone says you can't use a phone, and they'll be like, "What? I've been using a phone for 3 years. I can use a phone all the time." It'll be a systematic change, I think.
Yeah, or they'll be in the class and the teacher will tell them, okay, get your phone out,
There you go. That's the teacher they're
and
gonna want to be with.
and now
Yes,
use your camera, and I want you to interview somebody else in class, and
yes.
here's your prompt, and we're going to put together a video, you know, um, and so yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? And we may
Very
find that
interesting.
we go away from laptops, and we start to scale down, and maybe we end up going to school with just phones, right?
There you
Because
go.
we can get it done on with a phone. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Very interesting. I think in our generation, we'll see the educational shift, which is going to be enlightening. I think it'll be fun to see. Is there anything you haven't shared that you wanted to share?
I don't
We talked
remember.
about a lot of things. I just want to make sure that we touch base with everything you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, no, yeah, we did talk about a lot of things, so I'm not sure if I covered everything I want, but I mean, I've obviously enjoyed this conversation. Well, I guess one thing that you were saying earlier when you're talking about working with each student individually, right? And I take this back to coaching. Uh, there's no cookie cutter mold on how you coach, and this goes to educators. In the future, I think we're going to be looking more for coaches, so facilitators or coaches, what do you want to call them? But when you coach in sports, you have to treat every individual differently. Some players, they react well to being barked at,
Yeah,
right? They want to be barked at. Others need to be cajoled, right? And you need to tell them they're great, they're great, they're great, and then you can criticize them, right? Or critique them. And they all got different skills, and so a coach really has to be able to talk about differentiation,
yeah.
right? If every player on the team was exactly the same, well, either that team's really good because they're going to be, robotic and everyone's super good, or they're not going to be good because everyone's bad. You have to mix role players, and everyone has their own role. So if you're a great shooter, great, but and you're a great rebounder, great. And you have to mix and match them. And I think that the teachers are going to be doing that too, trying to figure out the skills like you do, the individual, working with the individuals, right, and mixing, matching them.
Yes.
And the other thing is we're also learning about the global nature of what we're doing. A lot of times before COVID, even though we're with all the technology and Zoom was out there, right? But no one was really using it too much other than the business world, I think, right? But now Zoom has given us the opportunity to, well, you're in Ontario right now.
Correct.
And I'm in Bangalore, and we're
communicating. I know.
Right?
And our producers in California.
Right.
And that's just fantastic. We're like connected.
Right. And so the students can connect. I mean, I'm going to date myself again, but when I was growing up, we had something called pen pals, and that was, well, you wrote an email, or not an email. I'm sorry. You actually wrote a letter, you put in the mailbox, and maybe a couple months later, you got something back from somebody in a different country. And you thought, wow, how cool is that? I mean, what a connection. Now it's instant. Right. So because it's instant, the opportunities again in education and student-led education are incredible, right? And students can collaborate around the world, and that's another area that we're working with and working on. We had a science bowl that had participants in it from the United States all the way to Korea.
Amazing. Yes.
Yeah, right. And this was something that it was an idea when I was talking to the students about it, but I hadn't really brought it up, or I hadn't really finalized the platform for it yet. And I just asked them, what do you think about this? And they thought, well, we could do that, because the Science Bowl before was just local, right? And they thought, wow, that's cool. Well, we get back to, and that was in May, and then we get back to school. They had already planned it. They had already got 150 participants. They had already done all this work to get it happening, right? So that's something else that I actually have been working on with some other activities directors around the world, in Colombia and Belgium and France, and a really cool group of people. And we've created this thing called Global Interscholastic Association, which is just this platform where students and schools can put their activities that they're doing, so such as the Science Bowl, and people can look at that, and they can contact the school, and they can sign up for it. So it's just a way of bringing people together.
I like that. That's something to look forward to, because I hope that part continues after COVID, right? So the world becomes a little bit smaller and everyone can connect with each other. And I correct myself. I think Florida. I think Wallace is in Florida right now. So.
No, he's in Palo Alto.
Oh, there you go. Third time correction. And tell me that's not cool. 3 different cities around the world in 3 different time zones connecting to do this podcast, which is awesome. Right. It was really nice talking to you. I wish you all the luck in your programming, and I hope that we do get to connect sometime next year when it's actually in the progress, to see how things are working, so we can talk to the students and get ideas. I think that would be a wonderful way to continue this conversation, to see where to go next as we all learn together.
Thank you, Nilmini.
Take care. Nice meeting you, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching and learning with us at SchoolRubric with educators from across the globe. For more access to articles, magazines, podcasts, live episodes, our international school directory, courses, and more, visit us at schoolrubric.org. Thank you.